Yeah, man. So on three sports, if you're new to recruiting and maybe you don't keep up with recruiting, maybe you don't keep up with college football. Well, if you don't keep up with college football, you're probably at the wrong show. But no, stick around. We'll make you fall in love with it. But if you're new to recruiting, maybe you have a favorite team and you don't follow recruiting, or maybe you are into recruiting and you care about who your team gets, but you don't actually go on these websites and dig in the weeds and do these sort of things. Well, you're in luck because we're doing it for you. And On Three, as I was saying earlier, is one of the top websites to figure out recruiting information. Now, we don't have a sponsorship with On Three. We're not partnered with On Three. And there's another website I'll shout out, 24/7 Sports. I think On Three and 24/7 Sports are doing it better than anybody in the industry right now when it comes to keeping you up to date with not just football but basketball recruiting. Crystal balls, which is basically predicting where players will go. Who's visiting campus this week, who could flip. It is everything for recruiting on three sports and 24/7 sports. And On Three yesterday revealed that they have completely revamped this year's rankings. And here's just a couple of the names. I think Brandon's going to throw it up on the screen. He's got it up. And there's a lot of changes. If you do keep up with this, you'll immediately look at the top 4 or 5 that you can view there and see, man, there's been some changes. Yeah, some changes at the top. And that's kind of where we're going to start. I mean, there have been a lot of changes in the top 25, and you might be thinking, there's not even football going on right now. If you think about it, this is in the middle of summer. These kids aren't playing high school games right now. How in the world could their status have changed so much from the end of their junior year to the middle of their summer between junior and senior year? Well, a lot of this comes from camps. A lot of these kids participate in camps where they go and they compete against other kids that are in the same recruiting class or maybe younger than them. And drills, you might have heard of the Elite 11 QB camp, and we'll actually get into that in a minute. But that's where a lot of these rating changes go from. And also, guys, there are human beings making these decisions on where to rank these kids. Human beings have different opinions on different kids, so that's why you see a lot of change. But let's just start at the top, man. Williams Nowani. Now, this is a kid who, if you go over to 24/7's website, which we don't have that for you, but just trust me, he's a top 3 recruit. And he was also a top 3 recruit for On 3. But here's the thing. He's not a top 3 recruit, not just a top 3 recruit anymore. On 3's got him listed as their number 1 player in the entire country. Now, Williams is a kid out of Missouri. Big, strong, physical, fast. I mean, to be the number 1 recruit in the country and be an interior D lineman, you kind of have to be strong, fast, quick. He's really a do-it-all player. As you can see, he's rated a 5-star. He's a 5-star on every website. And now the number 1 player for On 3. And if you keep up with recruiting, you may be wondering, man, I looked at recruiting 2 weeks ago, and Dylan Raiola was the number 1 recruit. And I hear all this about Dylan Raiola, the quarterback. Be patient. We're going to get there. But Williams Nowani has taken the number 1 spot. And if you're a fan of one of these teams, man, you better be hoping you find some 4 in the yard and get lucky, because Williams Nowani, I have a feeling, is going to be an immediate impact player wherever he goes. Some of the schools that are in the running, if you'll see right now, the RPM on 3 is really trending for Oklahoma. His dad played at the University of Oklahoma, so obviously that's in the cards for him. But watch out for Missouri. And you might be thinking, the Missouri Tigers getting the number 1 player in the nation? That just doesn't seem very likely, Zach. I'm not saying it's likely, but Missouri's in that thing. Williams Nowani's taken several visits out there, and they've made his top list. And whether it was just because they're his hometown school or not, watch out for him. Nobody thought they'd get Luther Burden. What was it, last cycle or the cycle before, the number 1 receiver, and they did. Watch out for Missouri. Tennessee's in this thing heavily. It was believed at one point it was kind of down to Oklahoma and Tennessee, but there's some more teams that have creeped up. I haven't heard as much buzz on Tennessee lately when it comes to Nowani, but they're definitely still in there after him. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on Rocky Top one bit. And then Oregon and Georgia are the last 2, and I'd say Georgia more than Oregon. Dan Lanning, I love what he's doing at Oregon. He's trying to build a defensive team in the Pac-12, which is something you don't see very often. He's an SEC-minded coach, and he's trying to bring defense to the Pac-12. Watch out for them. And finally, UGA, the two-time defending national champions, are right there for Williams-Nwaneri. It's no secret Kirby Smart loves defense. Kirby Smart wants big athletic freaks. Kirby Smart wants guys that are going to come in and make an impact, and Williams-Nwaneri feels all of that. So that's your kind of teams to watch out for Nwaneri. I won't give my pick just yet. I'd say I think the top three, it's going to come down to Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Georgia. That would be the three that I would have up there. But yeah, that's kind of the update on Williams-Nwaneri, and it's worth saying to On 3, they're the first people that have put someone other than Dylan Raiola in the top recruit spot. So maybe they're on Williams-Nwaneri early, but we're going to talk about Dylan in here just a minute. But man, let's segue to the guy who replaced Dylan as the number one QB on 3 sites, and that's Julian Sayin. So Julian Sayin's out of Carlsbad, California, and you may have heard his name some in headlines recently. Julian is a big, I say fairly big. He's your prototypical QB size these days. What does he stand, Brandon? He's about 6'1.5", 6'2". Yeah, 6'1.5". It looks like you guys can see it on the screen.
6'1.5", 190.
Yeah, so just your prototypical QB size really these days. You know, back in the mid to early 2000s, you would see a pocket passing QB would have to be 6'3", 6'4". Not anymore. And I mean, if you need an example, look at the team he's committed to. He's committed to Alabama. Bryce Young was probably about 5'10" with high heels on. So, and he was a great quarterback there, possibly the most talented quarterback Alabama's ever had. So, you know, it's the new style. You don't have to have the big, strong QB anymore necessarily. They like to get these mobile guys or guys that can extend the play. Think of a Joe Burrow, that type, where he's not necessarily mobile, but he's got enough mobility to get out of the pocket and make a play downfield. So Julian Sayin, this is a guy who is pretty much consistently at Rivals, at 247 Sports, at ESPN. I believe he's the number 2 QB in all those websites' rankings, but not on 3. On 3, in this update yesterday, took Julian Sayin and tied him to a rocket ship and sent him up the board. And Julian Sayin's now the number 1 QB recruit on the board for On 3. He was formerly number 2. And you're saying, man, I've heard a lot of Dylan Raiola. I keep saying this name. It keeps coming up. How does this Julian Sayin kid get over him? I haven't heard as much about him. He's not as high profile of a recruit. Yes, he is. Julian Sayin has been a high-profile recruit. Actually, Georgia and Alabama were in a race to get this kid back the middle of last year. This is a guy who's had high-profile offers for a long time. He's just kind of been overshadowed a little bit by Dylan. And the primary reason Julian Sayin jumped him in the rankings is because of the Elite 11 QB camp. I mentioned it earlier. This is an event held out in California where they take not 11, believe it or not. They take, I believe, 21 or 22 kids out to California. QBs, it's a 3-day long camp. They let them compete against each other. And guess who won it? Ding, ding, ding. The guy who's the number 1 recruit now on On3's website as far as quarterbacks go, Julian Sayin, won the event. It's kind of controversial. Some people there put their vote in for Raiola. Some put in for Sayin, but Sayin got the dub at the end of the day along the 3 days. It was kind of between Raiola and Sayin. Sayin came out on top. Therefore, On 3 saw enough at the Elite 11 camp and said, let's put Sayin above Raiola because he beat him there. Sayin, this is not your big arm guy necessarily. Now, he's got an arm. Don't get me wrong. He's a college quarterback. He can throw the ball. But he's really an accurate quarterback. That's what won him the competition. He's very, very pinpoint accurate. Think of C.J. Stroud last year. Not saying he's on that level yet, but we're projecting here. When it comes to recruiting, these kids couldn't step on a college football field today and make an immediate impact. But when you're recruiting, you're projecting what a guy could be. And Julian's saying could be the next great Alabama quarterback. This one's pretty sealed up. I don't even need to get into the teams. It's Alabama on top. He's already committed. Don't see him flipping anytime soon. Congrats, Julian saying you are the number 1 quarterback on On3's rankings. All right, man, let's send it over to the guy we have mentioned several times. And if camera, people watching, if you see me pointing, It's because I can see the things that you're looking at. I can see the on-3 ranking. So if you ever see me look up and do that and you're like, what is this guy doing with his hands? I'm pointing at the on-3 rankings up there because I have a way I can visually see it while I'm talking to you guys, which is awesome. And thanks to producer Brandon up there. So let's get into Dylan Raiola. Now, he's committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. This is a recruitment that has been talked about for a long time. You may remember it. This guy was originally committed to the Ohio State University in Columbus there. He was committed there for a while, but backed out of his commitment, and people were all over. He's going to Nebraska. He's going to Nebraska because his dad actually played football at Nebraska and then went on to play with the Lions in the NFL, and a lot of people thought, man, he's going to follow in his dad's footsteps. But that wasn't the case. Little did they know, a man named Kirby Smart had his hands all in this from the jump. So, as you can see there on the screen, he's committed to the University of Georgia. He's a 5-star across every site. And he's the number 1 quarterback on every site, except on 3 Sports. He's now the number 2 quarterback in the country. And he slid down to the number 11 overall recruit, I do believe. I can't see it on the screen, but I believe he's the number 11 overall recruit. Something interesting. You guys can see it on the screen. If you look on your bottom left below Dylan's picture, about the 4th tab down, you'll see Buford, Georgia. Well, that's another reason Dylan's been in the headlines. Dylan is not from Buford, Georgia. He has never even played a football game in the state of Georgia, but he will this year. Dylan has decided that he would transfer from Pinnacle High School there in Phoenix, Arizona. He'll transfer to Buford. 1, to be closer to the University of Georgia, and 2, I believe they have some family that live in Georgia. And Buford's a powerhouse when it comes to Georgia football. They've got KJ Bolden, Edric Houston's there. That's some guys that are top 25 recruits on defense, and Dylan's going to join them and play football. Look, Dylan lost the the Elite 11 camp. He came in 2nd place, but he had the biggest arm there. This is your more prototypical, bigger QB who's going to stand in the pocket and make downfield throws. Really good off play action, really good ability to stretch the field. Dylan's about 6'3". Don't want to get it wrong. You guys can see it. He's about 6'2.5", 6'3", 220. He's a bigger kid. He's only 17 years old. He's at 6'3", 220. He's pretty much already grown into his frame. I don't really have a comparison. I mean, he's going to have a play style like a Joe Burrow. Not saying he is a Joe Burrow, but he's going to stand in the pocket, make downfield throws, go off play action, and if the pressure comes, he's going to have the ability to get out of the pocket. I think Georgia got a really good one here. So did Alabama, and I think they're going to continue to run the SEC. It's going to be thanks to high-profile commits like this. All right, Brandon, let's flip on over to the next guy we want to talk about. So we kept talking there about the University of Georgia, and I think we're going to go on and we're going to talk about another guy that Georgia has their hand in on, and that's Justin Williams. Justin's out of the state of Texas, as you can see on your screen. He plays linebacker. He's rated the number 1 linebacker on On3 site. I believe he is on the number 1 linebacker at 247 as well. I think y'all can probably see that on the screen right there at the industry rankings, which is a really cool feature that On3 has. But Oregon right now, as you can see in the RPM, is trending up. But I'll be honest with you, that RPM, which is the prediction, was put in a long time ago. And if I had to say right now, Georgia's probably trending more for Justin Williams, basically because his recruitment might have got spoiled by his own teammate on accident. So his teammate plays defensive end. John Ye's his last name. I can't pronounce his whole name. John Ye is a Nigerian player who plays defensive end at the same high school as Justin Williams, and he actually committed to the University of Georgia maybe a week ago now, a couple days ago, and they said, why Georgia? And Joseph Ajonye said, well, Justin Williams really talked me into it, and Dylan Raiola. And everybody kind of double-take. Justin Williams talked you into going to Georgia. And I don't think he was supposed to say that. But it is also worth noting that Oregon just got a linebacker commit right before we went on air. And that could have big implications. With that linebacker going there, Justin Williams might pivot and go to UGA. This is a big kid. I mean, he's consensus a top 2, top 3 linebacker in the country. He's right up there with the likes of Sammy Brown and DeMarcus Riddick. Riddick is also a UGA commit. So, there could be a lot of dominoes fall here. If Williams goes to UGA, does DeMarcus Riddick recommit somewhere else? Only time will tell, but Justin Williams think he's going to be a good one. He's your number 1 linebacker in the On3 rankings. All right, I think this would be the last guy that we're going to kind of touch on. That this one didn't necessarily make a big jump up in the rankings, but this is a guy who actually just committed yesterday somewhere in the SEC, and I just kind of wanted to talk about him. And his name is Fletcher Westphal. And you might not have heard of him because he's an offensive lineman. They don't get enough love. But Fletcher Westphal is an offensive lineman out of the state of Virginia. Committed to the Florida Gators yesterday. He's a big 4-star offensive lineman across all websites except Rivals. Rivals has him as a 3, which, not to be rude to Rivals, I don't put as much stock in their stuff as I do on 3 and 247. But this is a big get for Billy Napier. Look, the Florida Gators this might surprise a lot of people, they're 3rd in the industry rankings right now as far as recruiting classes for 2024, and I think that would surprise a lot of folks. Billy Napier is recruiting really, really well, and we know in the SEC you've got to recruit the trenches, and this is a big get for Billy Napier. I'm not sure if Billy's going to be a long-term solution at Florida, but man, the way he's recruiting right now, even if they have a down year, it's going to be hard for me to see them not bringing him back unless it's just a disastrous season. They've got a quarterback who's a 5-star or 4-star, depending on the website, and DJ Lagway committed. And they're building a really, really good class. They got the 5-star linebacker out of Mississippi, Jamonte Waller, committed. They're doing a good job right now getting these kids on campus, getting them to fall in love with the vision. They don't really have a proven concept, but more of a vision they're selling these kids. And Fletcher Westphal is the next guy to buy into Billy Napier's vision.